Hello, my name is Blanca and I'm 14 years old. In this month's workshop for the Queerudition, I'm going to be showing you how you can make a pride cake from your home. Because we're all stuck inside and we can't be together, but we can still celebrate from our homes. I'm going to be showing you how you can make a vanilla chocolate marble cake with a raspberry filling, orange Swiss meringue buttercream, and white chocolate ganache. We're going to be dyeing the Swiss meringue buttercream rainbow. Make sure you have red, blue, and yellow food dyes before you start this so that you can make it as rainbow as possible. Here are the ingredients for the marble cake. 3 ounces of unsweetened baking chocolate. A total of 1 3/4 cup of milk, but we will be separating this. Half a cup of butter or margarine. 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. 1½ cups of granulated sugar. 2 eggs. 2 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. 3 teaspoons of baking powder. 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Half a teaspoon of baking soda. These are the ingredients you will need for the raspberry filling. 2 cups of raspberries. 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. Half a cup of sugar. These are the ingredients you will need for the orange Swiss meringue buttercream. 4 egg whites. 1 cup of granulated sugar. 1 cup of butter. Half a teaspoon of salt. A teaspoon of vanilla extract. The zest of 1 orange. A splash of orange extract. I realize that is not an exact measurement. Do it to taste. Gel food colorings are best, but they are expensive, so these liquid food colorings will do the trick. Finally, this is what you will need for the white chocolate ganache. 6 ounces of white baking chocolate and half a cup of heavy whipping cream. First, we want to melt our unsweetened baker's chocolate over a double boiler with half a cup of milk. The reason we use a double boiler is because chocolate is an easily burned ingredient, so the boiling water underneath the bowl helps it slowly melt. Once your water is boiling, you're going to take a bowl that fits perfectly on top and add your 3 ounces of chocolate. Next, you're going to add in a half cup of milk and let it melt. As you can see, this is all melted, so we can set it aside. Next, we're going to be using our electric mixer with the paddle attachment to cream our half cup of butter in a bowl. You're going to want to do this until it is light and fluffy. About halfway through your creaming process, you're going to want to add your 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now that the mixture is smooth, we're going to gradually add our 1½ cups of granulated sugar. For accurate measurements, make sure to use a leveler. Gradually add your 1½ cups of sugar on a low speed. Change it to a higher speed to get it well combined. Once your fat sugar mixture is thoroughly combined, set it aside. Next, using the electric mixer again, grab a new bowl or pretend the one that you have is not dirty and attach your whisk attachment to your electric mixer. And we're going to grab our 2 eggs and crack them in the bowl. We're going to be beating these 2 eggs on a high speed until they're frothy. I realize frothy means nothing to most people, so this is what it should look like. And with our violently yellow spatula, we're going to gradually add our butter sugar mixture that we previously creamed together, slowly. And we're going to stay on our whisk attachment. And by gradually add, I mean about 1/4 cup at a time. We're going to give it one last mix on a high speed to make sure it's not too chunky. Here's what it should look like after it's done mixing. And set that aside. As you can see, this is a very old mixer, so we have to beat it with a mallet to keep it in place. And if you're wondering why we're using this old crappy KitchenAid when we have this brand new one right here, Good question. We're going to be adding the dry ingredients now. So take your flour and measure big scoops because we're going to be sifting this and taking out what we need from it. The reason we do this is because flour gets very compacted in packaging, so we want to sift it all out so that we can get accurate measurements. I'm going to be measuring my 2 3/4 cups of flour into this blue bowl here. Now in our really dirty bowl, it's fine, it's just dirty with flour, we're going to add our pre-sifted flour, 3 tablespoons of baking powder, and half a teaspoon of salt. And sift that all together to combine. Finally, with the paddle attachment, we're going to be mixing everything together. So have your egg, butter, sugar mixture in your mixing bowl, measure out your 1 1/4 cup of milk, and grab your dry ingredients. We're going to alternate the addition of the milk and the dry ingredients, scraping down the edges with our spatula. Be sure to separate your ingredients into 3 or 4 additions. So starting with the milk, I'm going to add about 1/4 cup. And mix it all together on a low speed. Doing about the same amount with your dry mixture. On a low speed as well. Be sure to end on the dry ingredients and do not overmix. Now is when I would preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Because if we preheated our oven beforehand, it would have wasted a lot of heat and electricity. So if we do it now, it'll be ready right on time for us to put the pans in the oven. Add a half teaspoon of baking soda to your chocolate mix. Now divide your batter into equal parts. And this one we're going to add the chocolate mixture to, and this one we will leave vanilla. Now I'm going to be adding the chocolate mixture in. Prepare 2 9-inch circle pans by greasing it with butter and flouring it. Grab a tablespoon and alternate between adding the vanilla and the chocolate cake batter. Shake the cake batter around, do not spread. And pop these into the oven for 40 to 50 minutes. Next, we're going to be making the raspberry filling. Add your 2 cups of frozen raspberries to a pan. Since we are only making 2 layers of cake, we only need 1 layer of filling, so add more raspberries if needed. Add in your 1/4 cup of flour, a little bit less than half a cup of sugar. Add about 1/4 cup of water. And simmer that on medium heat. As you can see, it's starting to cook on the bottom. Once it does that, you will want to cook it for a little bit longer and let it thicken. Once it's a liquidy jam consistency, it should look like this. You will want to stop cooking it and it is ready to fill your cakes. Next, we're going to do the orange Swiss meringue buttercream. For this, you'll need to separate your egg whites and egg yolks. We're going to be needing to separate 4 egg whites. In this bowl, I've already separated 3 of them. And let me show you how personally I like to separate my egg whites. First, you crack the egg into one bowl. Lots of people like to use these eggshells, but they're sharp on the edges and they might crack the yolk. So if you want a full yolk, I suggest using your hands like I'm going to do right now. I'm going to take the egg yolk out with my hands. And move it from hand to hand, trying to get all the egg white off. I'm going to put this egg white into the rest of the bowl. and set the egg yolk aside for another day's use. Add your egg whites into a bowl and add your 1 cup of sugar. Whisk that all together until it's combined. Heat your eggs and sugar over a hot water bath until all your sugar has dissolved or it reaches 160 degrees. Now that the sugar's dissolved and it's slightly fluffy, I'm going to put it on our electric mixer with the whisk attachment and beat on high speed until there's stiff peaks. Now that my egg whites have nice stiff peaks, I'm going to add a cup of butter, a tablespoon at a time, whisking on a low speed. Now whisk on a higher speed for 2 minutes until it's all combined nicely. It should look nice, creamy, and fluffy. Now add your 1/4 teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of vanilla extract, and a tiny splash of orange extract. Do it to taste, start off small. Finally, add a small orange's worth of orange zest. We went ahead and took our cakes out of our pans. One trick for this is to take a small knife and cut around the edge of your pan to let it slide out smoothly. I'm going to take one of our cakes and flip it right side up onto our board. Something lots of people do, and I'm not completely against it, is cutting off the tops of their cake. Personally, I don't, because I don't find my cakes are affected by it. I'm going to keep the natural base of the cake on the bottom and flip this cake over here upside down so that the top of the cake doesn't show and we still get smooth, sharp edges. I went ahead and put a tiny fraction of my buttercream in a piping bag, just enough so that I can surround the border of my cakes and my raspberry filling won't fall out. I got my raspberry filling out from the fridge and now we're going to fill the center of the cake. I just finished spreading a nice thick layer of our raspberry filling onto our cakes, and now we're going to add the second layer on top. Make sure to flip it over so that you don't get that bump at the top. Now I'm going to take my leveler and grab a little bit of our buttercream and fill in the gaps so that we have a smooth exterior. Now I've finished filling in the gaps with buttercream, and as you can see, it may be a little bit uneven and there may be still a few gaps, but we can fill that in once our buttercream is colored. I went ahead and separated all of our buttercream into 6 separate bowls and got out our food coloring. Now I'm going to dye each bowl a separate color of the rainbow so that we can start spreading it on our cake. Now I've finished coloring all of our buttercream, and I'm going to add dollops alternating colors in rainbow order all around our cake on the top and on the sides. I'm going to be spreading this out with the spoons to give it a little bit of a watercolor effect. And then if you want a smooth texture, you can go in with a leveler or something flat. If you want an uneven abstract effect, then you can do like I'm doing and keep it like this. Remember, you don't need to get the edges perfect because we will be using the dripping effect with the chocolate ganache. Great, now that I'm done putting on the buttercream, I don't want to smooth it out too much because I don't want to have the colors mixed together too much. Now we're going to set this aside and start on the white chocolate ganache. For this ganache, you're going to want to heat half a cup of heavy whipping cream in a pot over medium heat. Once it starts going frothy on top and steaming, remove it from the heat and add your 6 ounces of white chocolate. Let it sit for about 5 minutes away from the heat. Currently I'm cooling down our ganache in an ice bath because I don't want it to melt our buttercream. If you have time, instead of doing the step, you can just leave it stirring it once in a while and let it cool down. If you want it for immediate use, make sure to use an ice bath and stir constantly. Hi! We've gone crazy. I did that. I can bake, but decorating isn't my forte, and what I didn't realize is that this white chocolate ganache is basically see-through. It's just shiny and makes all the colors less vibrant. If you want to recreate it, you can put drops of food coloring in it and take a toothpick and just kind of play around with it. I kind of had fun doing it, and I'm going to continue until it turns into a mess. We'll see how far this takes us. So there's no technique to this. I am literally just pulling it like that, but now I am taking some of this white chocolate ganache and taking it on the toothpick and dropping it places because the color goes away, obviously, because we're covering it up with the ganache. And I'm seeing what it does because this is all an experiment and I don't know what I'm doing anymore. What I'm going for is no straight lines. I want to make it look like a watercolor, like I dropped dye in water or something. As you can see here, I went for a bit of a watercolor look. I wanted it to look very abstract and neat and fun and cool, and I think we got that, especially with the pastel background that you can barely see anymore. But I'm quite proud of how it turned out, even though I just went wild with the decorating and it did not look good, but you can always turn it around and make something your own. So that's what I did. I'm sure that it tastes amazing, but I'm also very proud of how it looks. I hope you enjoyed watching this, and I hope you like the finished product. Happy Pride!